Welcome into the television version of Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. I'm delighted that you've tuned in, joined with me today on Strategies, and I'm also delighted we always try to bring the very best life strategists. We've got one of the best today, Dr. Johnette Magner. She is officially the Executive Director of External Affairs, Louisiana Tech University. But
very good, A+.
But back in the day, you were right here on this campus. Right. What has it been, 20 years ago?
Oh, it's been more than that. 20 to 25.
Okay,
yeah.
So 20, 25 years ago, forgive our memories, folks, but we've slept a couple of times in between.
Right.
Dr. Johnette Magner calls up and says, "What are you doing on Mondays at noon?" I don't remember exactly what I answered, but the result was this very program.
And I had found you because I listened to you on Keel.
The radio show,
and
Strategies
I
for
loved
Living.
Strategies for Living. I believe back at that time, you had a morning time slot.
We were in the 9 o'clock slot on Keel. Keel was just transitioning. And it's a strange story, Johnette, because, you know, I'd gone into practice as a therapist in 1991. And I'd been 17 years in the broadcasting, advertising business, primarily in radio. Okay. But I guess, you know, you can take the boy out of broadcasting, but you can't take the broadcasting out of the boy. So I'm over in Dallas, and I hear a snippet of what I thought was a local show. Turns out it was Dr. Laura Schlesinger.
Oh, how funny.
I had never heard of Dr. Laura, but I thought she was on one of the local stations, so I thought she was a Dallas program. And I listened a bit, and I said, I can do that. I came back to Shreveport and went, because I'd worked in radio for years, I went to the general manager of Keel and said, hey, what about this? And kind of right place at the right time, you know? And she said, yeah, let's do it. And that launched Strategies for Living on the radio in 1992. And so it must have been, what, around maybe 95, 96 that we started the television version?
My oldest was born in 94, and my youngest was born in 96. So that's about the right time.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring this full circle now.
Okay.
Okay, so full circle. Now you're on Strategies for Living Radio.
Yes.
Every Monday night.
I know, and I love it.
Mondays with Johnette. Yeah, so everything kind of comes full circle around, doesn't it?
I know. We've stayed friends that long.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Well, I'm
Still
glad
working
you're here.
together.
Yes. And you are a delight every Monday evening. I never know, folks, what, you know, Reuben Wright, our producer, and I, we kind of walk on eggshells every Monday because Johnette shows up with something to improve our lives. So tonight we're working on the second part of, do we need to break up with our smartphones?
Yes, it's based on a book by Catherine Price called How to Break Up with Your Phone. And so last week we identified whether or not we had problems with our phones.
She gave us a test. Let me just say what it was.
And didn't
Reuben and I failed.
Oh, you failed miserably.
But we won't talk about that, right?
Right.
Reuben did get a worse score than I did. I just want to get that on record.
He did, slightly.
Yeah.
But and
you had to throw in the slightly, didn't you?
I had to throw in the slightly, but so and I think probably most of our listeners, if they were keeping track of their score, found that they weren't real happy with the category they were in either, because so many of us who have smartphones don't just use them, they use us.
Yeah.
And so tonight what we're going to talk about is how to take back control of your phone.
Okay.
So I'm going to...
So you think maybe Reuben and I can slip in without taking a test this evening?
You won't have a test, but you may have some homework.
Well, we always have homework.
We always have homework. But yeah, it's going to be some great little tips on things you can do. Like in fact, one of them I did this morning. Turn your smartphone, if it's like an iPhone and it has all these beautiful colors, to black and white. It's called grayscale.
Oh. I didn't know you could do that.
Well, and iPhone, Apple makes it extremely difficult. So I had to, in fact, Google it, and there's
Figure out how to do it.
all these steps, but you can find it. But that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight, because if you turn your phone from color to black and white, when you look at it, it doesn't trigger the dopamine rush that color does. It doesn't hit our brains the same way. And so you look at it, it's kind of like saying, I want a cookie, and somebody giving you a saltine cracker. Saltine crackers are fine, but when you want
it's not a cookie.
It's not a cookie, right?
Yeah, when I want a brownie or a sugar cookie, I want my sugar.
Exactly. So it's a different experience. So that's what we're talking about tonight. And of course, every week I try to bring something that helps you live a healthier, happier, and I use the phrase more intentional life.
I love it.
So that we spend, it's not about productivity necessarily, although your productivity will increase with a lot of these things, but it's about making sure that you spend your time on the things that matter the most.
There you go. When did you know that you were going to be in some form of communication? I guess the first time I saw you on my television screen. Were you at Channel 3 or Channel 6? Where were you at as an anchor?
Well, I started at Channel 6 a week after graduating from the University of Texas undergrad. And then I was there for a couple of years. I did the morning show, which was right before the Today Show.
Now, did you major in undergraduate in journalism and communications?
I majored in broadcast journalism. And then
what led you to know this is my path? How did Johnette move down that particular path?
It's kind of a little bit of a funny story. I had a girlfriend. We ended up being roommates in college, but she had been in the Junior Miss program and had won America's Junior Miss.
Okay.
And we had done Junior Miss together. And we were having lunch one day, and she had just switched her major to broadcast journalism. And at the time, I was majoring in accounting and hating it.
I can understand that.
It was so not
I don't see you at all as an accountant.
No, it was so not a good match.
Right.
And I wasn't enjoying it, and I was really struggling in the class. And when she told me she had decided to major in broadcast journalism, I said, well, your major sounds a lot better than mine.
A lot more fun than mine.
And then I went home and I said, if that one sounds so good, why am I not doing that one?
There you go.
And I called up my dad, and he said, I am so excited that you have found something you really want to do, because this other one was just not.
Wasn't you?
It wasn't me. And so I dared my sophomore year to switch majors.
You jumped in. Did you know from the beginning, those
Yeah.
beginning classes, did you know I'm home, I'm where I'm supposed to be?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. It was just comfortable, natural, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed getting up and doing the work. And then over the years, I really honed my writing ability. And I'm very inquisitive by nature,
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
And so I loved being a reporter and asking questions and learning about things that I didn't know anything about, and having to put together a story very quickly. I just found it really hit in all the right spots for me, all of my strengths and interests.
When did you decide, okay, I'm going to move into the area of teaching others to do this? Because ultimately you ended up doing a PhD. You are Dr. Johnette Magner.
Yes.
And your PhD is from?
University of Maryland at College Park, so it's the flagship for Maryland. And I had, we mentioned Scott and Clark.
Right.
And at the time, I had a spouse who worked out of town. So the TV schedule in the middle of the night doesn't work very well when you've got little kids.
Right.
And I just started thinking about teaching and ended up going back, getting the PhD, and then I've taught mass comm, off and on ever since then. And I love teaching. I've always said that the fun thing about teaching journalism and communications is, unlike math, your students want to take your class.
Yes.
They're there because they've chosen that class.
Right.
They're usually majoring in it, so
And
they
most of them are
love it.
passionate about it.
Yeah, it's not a requirement like so many classes where they go and they don't want to take it. So the enthusiasm with the students has always made it.
What's
so
neat
fun.
to do is to walk in here and see so many smiles on so many faces, and you feel the energy, the positive energy.
Yeah, people who do this love it.
It's contagious.
It is.
Plus, you make so much money at it, right?
Oh, I know, because you and I are so high paid.
Yeah, we were talking about that before we went on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, although we can be very proud of Bossier Parish Community College, because we were talking about this in the going down the hall when we started Strategies for Living. The communications division, this division of Bossier Parish Community College, was literally in a warehouse on Douglas Drive. And I think I told you that you didn't know that it was Liberia, the old Liberia Manufacturing Company is what it used to be.
Yeah,
before BPCC.
A warehouse, a barn. I'm not.
It was strange because they manufactured drapery for RVs and motor and trailers. Yeah. Specialty manufacturers.
And yes, I mean, anybody who's been around for a while and remembers the original BPCC campuses. They went from having probably the least impressive campus in the state to one of the most impressive campuses in the state. Yeah, and it's huge.
It is, and there's so much here. There's so much here. We are waxing memories right now with Dr. Johnette Magner, but we're going to come back and do more than just wax memories. Dr. Johnette Magner is our life strategist. We're going to use every bit of her knowledge when we come back here on Strategies for Living. Stay with us, more to come.
Action. Take 4.
That was awesome, dude.
Shot 40, take 1,297.
What?
Guys, help me!
Good, good.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Obviously, you are watching Strategies for Living, and I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan, and I appreciate you watching. But you can also listen to us. Johnette mentioned, Dr. Johnette Magner, our life strategist, mentioned we started out on the radio, and we're still there. News Radio 710 Keel, 101.7 FM, and the Keel app, and the Facebook Live. Lots of different ways to listen to Strategies for Living on Keel every weekday evening, Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday mornings between 9 and 10, all on Keel. But this very day, you're watching us, and here's Dr. Johnette Magner, who will also be our life strategist this evening.
Yes.
Because it's Mondays, and we have Mondays with Johnette. She always brings something to challenge us. And, tonight I get the cheat sheet, so I'm settled down. I'm not on pins and needles tonight. I know what's coming tonight.
Yes, no live test given
No,
out
but I got a
over the
live.
air
I got
that
a
you
live.
failed.
I got a live test that I failed last week. So tune in and hear more about it. You've been around journalism, around particularly broadcast journalism, a long time. You must have started when you were 3 years old.
Oh yeah, something like that. Yeah.
What's the biggest change that you have seen in broadcast journalism, communications, in the years that you've been doing all of this, Johnette?
Well, I would say there are really two primary changes, and I started in broadcasting about 25 years ago. So the first one is that you have so many news sources for news and information.
Yes.
I love to tell my children that I was on TV when you only had 3 channels and you didn't have the internet. You could either read a book or you could turn on me or somebody else.
That's right.
And so
That's right.
we had far more people tuning into television news because that was just
It was one of the prime sources. You read the newspaper in the morning and you watched the afternoon and evening news on your local channels.
And now, of course, you have so many different ways to get the news, not just different media, but also different times of day.
Right.
You don't have to wait for the newspaper
We're
to be
inundated.
delivered. You don't have to wait for the evening news. So many
Right.
people go to the news and no longer wait for it. But the other thing in terms of content, I would say is when I did news, there was a stronger line between news and entertainment. It was much clearer.
That's blurred now, isn't it?
It is blurred. We have rules that we all followed, and you could count on those rules regarding fairness, objectivity.
We
balance.
could count on Walter Cronkite. We could count on Chet Huntley and David Brinkley. We could count on Harry Reasoner, couldn't we?
We could, because we all followed a code, and entertainment was things like Gilligan's Island.
Right.
I mean, I just,
And never the twain would meet.
Exactly, and then you shifted into news as entertainment. So you take some of the individuals who are on Keel, such as Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity.
Or locally, Robert and Aaron.
Yes.
They have to be one part. They have to give us news, but they also have to entertain us.
Yes, but with some, I would argue that Robert, well, at least when they do the newscast, it's more
pretty
clear
straight.
news.
Yeah, it's
but
pretty straight.
Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity would tell you they're in the entertainment business, not the news business.
Yes.
It just so happens that current events are the material for their entertainment.
Yes.
And so it's become much more difficult, I think, for the consumer to understand that depending on what type of show it is, you really have a different set of rules.
Is the broadcast business, it gets tagged with that's just fake news. How healthy is the business today? Is it healthy? Is it in need of some assistance? What do you think?
Fake news exists, but it doesn't exist where you think it does.
Oh.
Because fake news is now a claim made by politicians and all parties, all varieties. It's something they say when there's a story out there that they don't want you to believe because it's not good for them. So fake news is often claimed when in fact it's not,
not.
fake news. But do we have fake news? Absolutely, and it's most prolific in social media. You know, and the concern about the Russians planting fake news is real. That is
Absolutely.
not fake news in
Right.
itself. That is not
Right.
crazy conspiracy stuff. And I think in the upcoming elections, we're going to have to be even more questioning than we are now, because you're going to see governments around the world trying to influence our elections by one way or the other, for whatever reason, motive they have, by putting news in that's not news at all.
If we could put you and I in a time machine and we could take us back, and by the way, if we could do this, we could make $1 gajillion. But if we could take us back 30 years, would you do this again? Would you go into media again?
I would. I mean, communication is not a field that is going away. If anything, our ability to communicate across long distances has so changed thanks to technology. So communication is more important, I think, than ever. The key with communication today is, again, technology drives the changes. And so as a communications professional, it's a trick to stay up to speed on how these things are evolving, especially if you're going to teach the next generation of communicators. You've got to stay current on trends and technologies.
You don't sound like you think the industry is going to hell in a handbasket.
No, it's not at all.
Yeah. It's changing, though.
What worries me the most is that you cannot expect the viewer, the listener, the reader to have the sophistication that he or she needs to differentiate among these sources and be able to tell, this is one I can trust, this is one I cannot. ABC News, NBC News, CBS News at night, they still follow the same rules they did 25 years ago when we were in news back then. But some of the others, such as Fox and MSNBC and CNN, they have a bias. They admit to their bias for the most part, and they blend news and entertainment. And so to really be able to understand the differences when they all just look like news,
Right.
is hard.
Right.
And that's the most concerning thing, is that there's so much out there, and it's just asking a lot of the consumer. And we're actually trying to intentionally confuse the consumer,
Yes. Yes.
you know?
So it's let the consumer beware and be a smart consumer
Yes.
of your news product. Know where this is coming from. Know what you're reading and listening and
Yeah.
scrolling through.
If I had to give one piece of advice, it is don't believe anything you see on Facebook.
I love it. That's
I
pretty
mean,
good. That's
now,
pretty good
it doesn't
advice.
mean it's not true.
Right.
It means you have to check
Check
but
it
don't
out.
believe it.
Maybe do what President Reagan used to say: trust but verify.
Yeah, I wouldn't even trust.
There you go.
I would look it up. Most of the time when I see something that I go, oh my gosh, that's crazy, it's not real.
Yeah. Dr. Johnette Magner, thank you so much for doing what you do and being a true professional in communication and broadcasting. And thank you for your participation in Strategies for Living. And
Yeah.
so, folks, this evening and every Monday night, you can tune into the radio version of Strategies for Living. You'll get Mondays with Johnette, and you'll join the rest of us. You never know what she's going to bring. However, it's always going to be something that will stretch our minds and make us think and probably grow us a little bit here and there. So
I hope so.
look forward to tonight.
Yeah.
Folks, look forward to seeing you this evening and each and every evening on News Radio 710 Keel, 101.7 FM, the Keel app, or Facebook Live /strategiesforliving.com. Until next time, for Dr. Johnette Magner, I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. We'll see you next time on Strategies for Living.